Hello and welcome to a tutorial about mattress stitch. In mattress stitch, we are seaming the sides of the work of stockinette in this particular example. There are ways to do it in garter and other things. However, we're going to be focusing on basic stockinette mattress stitch today of the side-to-side comparison. There are different ways to do top to bottom and things like that, but we're going to start with the basics. Mattress stitch is nice and easy. I like to leave my ends when I am seaming till the after the seam is done. If I've left a very long end, it can be used for short pieces, but very rarely if you're seaming a sweater or something like that will you have wanted to leave a long enough end and work the whole piece, because the odds are you'll be grabbing it and it'll be getting in your way. So but because the seam selvage provides such a great place to bury ends, I like to leave mine till after. So they are here and we're just going to kind of ignore them for the moment, and I'm going to use this high contrast thread to show you what we're doing. In stockinette fabric, we have these running bars or ladders between stitches. And when you pull the fabric apart, you can see those. And this is what we will be using in mattress stitch. And we will be using the first full stitch. So it's important to know that the edge of stockinette often looks a bit janky because, of course, purling and knitting and not having stitches beside it means that this stitch row or this stitch column is a little less smooth and well organized. So it's really important to sort of figure out what is a stitch, where is the full V of what I have been working on, and then using the running bar between that stitch and the second stitch of your fabric. We always work with the right side facing us with mattress stitch. To start off, I'm going to go under the cast on edge or the bind off edge of my piece here. So this nice little chain of V's going across the bottom. I'm going to go under the first one, leaving an end long enough to weave in later. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So finding that V and going under it. And that's how we've begun, but we don't continue like that, obviously, since those edges are not where we want to put our seam. Again, we find the first full stitch, which will often look a little terrible because stitches like to have buddies beside them. So this is where we'll be going. We're going to go under the first ladder there, and then do the same thing on the other side, under the first ladder. And now we are going to repeat this process all the way up. Under on the left, under on the right. This kind of needle with the slightly curved up tip can be really helpful for mattress stitch because it just scoops under really easily. So with mattress stitch, we continue going on for a little while and it looks unjoined and weirdly floppy like this. But the magic of mattress stitch, and one of the most, I think, satisfying things there is in knitting, is zipping up a mattress stitch and seeing how it just magically just disappears and forms this beautiful and perfect seam. So let's do one more each side and then work a little zip up magic. All right. So when we zip up, it's your call how far you go up before zipping. However, the longer you leave, the harder it is on the fabric and the more likely you are to have a little bit of a trouble actually getting it to zip. So you just pull on the working end here and you'll see that it just zips shut, which is pretty amazing. Even though I've used a contrasting color, you can't see that happening at all. Now, when you do that, you then lose the little bit of help the stitches were giving you in where to pick up next. So my tip for that, just let me go back and find it. Before you go to zip it, just put your needle in where the next stitch would be and then pull on this. So let's show you what that would look like. You can see that when I'm going back and finding the place to put my needle, I'm always going back to the same hole where my needle, where the yarn came up last time. So I just go straight back into that location. So here, and then I just go find this over here, and I go back into that same little gap between the stitches. There we go. Just go back to that same one. And when we zip it, we hide that. So a trick before you zip is to put your needle in and under that bar. And then when you zip, you're already ready on at least one side to go. You'll still need to figure out on the other side, but at least it's a little helpful. And then you just go find that over here again. It is somewhat, I don't want to say controversial, but there is debate in mattress seaming whether going always under one bar is sort of the only acceptable way to do it, or whether you can go under 2 bars. So that would look like this. So I would go down here and I would go under 2. Now going 1 by 1 is obviously going to be more time consuming, but also stronger. So if you are looking for something that maybe a toddler is going to be wearing, or high use area or something like that, going 1 by 1 is very clearly going to be the best you've got. However, going 2 by 2 is an acceptable option. Many people have seen their sweaters this way and no one ever knew what was going on. When you are zipping, it is possible to zip too tightly and you can get some buckling. So if you are pulling on the fabric here against the end, you can shorten the seam. So afterwards, make sure you kind of run your hand along that seam and just make sure that it is the right length, that the zigzag hasn't gone too tight and shortened the density of the fabric right here. You want it to be the same height as the columns of knitting beside it. It won't be as stretchy because you're seaming, and that's part of the magic of seaming, is that it eliminates some of the stretch and bag from our knitting. So the front of Mattress stitch is beautiful and visible and absolutely magical on stockinette, and the back of it is just 2 stitches wide. These are the selvage stitches, and why when we are working pieces flat compared to in the round, we always need to cast on at least 1 extra stitch per seam, because that stitch is going to be eaten up by the seaming process. And once you've finished everything, you can use this selvage to very easily bury your ends. So you can just sort of stitch up and through the selvage. I like to zigzag. Or you can just grab 1 stitch and go over and over, making sure that it occasionally split a ply. Anytime you split a ply when seaming, or weaving in your ends, I should say, you are making that held a little tighter by the twist of the plies. And often it is a great idea to go in a reverse direction, so go up, then go down a little bit, so that any stretching really is unlikely to have that end pop out, because for it to pop out both in this direction and then in the other direction is really unlikely. So those seams are a great place to hide. So even though we seamed with blue, we really aren't seeing the blue. It's not very obvious on the front or the back. It's all happening here underneath where we rolled over that full stitch. That's our seam here. If you are seaming and you've knit your sweater in something that is a boucle or a textured yarn or a very fluffy yarn or something that is delicate, I suggest using a different yarn for your seam. I often will grab sock yarn, because sock yarn is designed to be smooth and sturdy, and you also don't need to seam in the same weight of yarn that you have knit other things in. I wouldn't go larger, but you can go smaller. So those are my tips for mattress stitch. I hope that helps you, and I hope you enjoy the zipping magic.